So maybe you want to join the United States Army and maybe you want to be an Army Ranger. I've talked about this topic before as far as, how this different path can go, right? There's really only one path that kind of makes you an Army Ranger. There's another thing that people think is being a Ranger, but for the most part, most people consider that to be a Ranger tab, which is the Ranger School. If you go to Ranger School, that's not really becoming an Army Ranger. That's really just going through this advanced leadership course to get that Ranger tab on your uniform to be able to wear, and cool. It looks awesome and probably an amazing school to make you a better leader. But for the most part, most people do not consider that to be an Army Ranger. What most people are going to consider being an Army Ranger is those individuals that go through RASP, formerly known as RIP for any of you really old school veterans from the late 90s, early 2000s type of thing. But now it is called RASP. That is the Ranger Assessment and Selection Program. You can go through this entire course. You could pass it, but still not become a Ranger, because passing the course does not guarantee you to become a Ranger. You have to still get selected. That's why it's the Ranger Assessment and Selection Program, because you have to make selection, just like how Special Forces goes through SFAS to make selection to go to SFAS, to become a Special Forces, individual. You have to go through the same thing for Rangers. So if you go through the whole thing, pass it, and you get selected, then you move on to be able to become a Ranger, which is what most people consider to be an Army Ranger. So let's talk about some of the requirements, as well as some different MOSs that are available to be in the Rangers, because not everyone can be in the Rangers based on your MOS. So this information comes from the ChristopherChaos.com website, link in the description box down below. But here I have the minimum requirements for what is going to be expected of someone who is trying to be eligible to be able to join the Army Rangers. So first off, U.S. citizenship. So, I've seen stuff before, where you can be in the Army as a U.S. resident, have a green card. Cool. This might be a waiverable thing. I don't know that for sure. This would be something you have to talk to an Army recruiter. If you're someone that only has a green card and doesn't have U.S. citizenship and you want to be a Ranger, probably have to talk to a recruiter to see if that's waiverable type of thing. But from the Army, they're saying it has to be a U.S. citizenship. You also have your ASVAB placement test of a tech score of 105 or above. That is the specific area of the ASVAB. I recently did a video, maybe a little card pops up kind of explaining about like the ASVAB scores and everything like that. But a specific area of your line scores is what it's called, that comes from different subjects on the ASVAB, is going to make up these different topics. For this example, in this specific category, the tech kind of area needs to be a 105 or above to be able to qualify for the Rangers. You have to meet the physical requirements by completing the Army Combat Fitness Test. I have some videos on our ACFT if you want to learn about that. Maybe another card pops up there too. You also have to clear height and weight standards. So you have to be within those height and weight standards, a certain height based on your age and what your max weight is going to be. And then you also have to pass the Ranger Fitness Test and the Water Survival Assessment. I've had people ask before, hey, I don't know how to swim. Is that going to be a big issue? Normally, no, not in the Army. But in this case, probably would be very helpful to know how to swim, considering there is a survival assessment for water type of thing. I don't know like exactly what all that entails, but I'm sure that it probably is very helpful to know how to swim to be able to do that survival test. Also talks about qualification for airborne school. Sometimes I've heard them say they prefer you to already be airborne qualified, already gone through airborne school. I've also heard other individuals say that it's not that big of a deal. They will send you through airborne school after you complete it, if you get selected type of thing. So, you have to be eligible, I think, at least at a minimum to be able to go to airborne school if you don't already have airborne school already knocked out and completed. 75th Ranger Regiment is an airborne unit, so they're going to want you to be airborne qualified, whether that's before you go off to assessment or after you finish the assessment or selection and get selected. So one way or the other, you need to qualify to be able to do airborne. Now, here's a really important one, right? You have to be able to qualify in a specific military occupational specialty, MOS, authorized to be hired by the 75th Ranger Regiment. Just any MOS in the Army is not going to qualify you to be able to be in the Rangers. Now, there is a lot, and we're going to talk about some of them because I'm not going to go through all of them, because there is a lot of MOSs that qualify to be in the 75th Ranger Regiment. So you have to be in one of those MOSs, but also even additionally here is saying, or you also need to be able to reclass into a military occupation specialty MOS found in the 75th Ranger Regiment. So if you are not already in an MOS, then you need to be able to reclass to a specific MOS in the Rangers. This is different from Special Forces because Special Forces has their own MOS. If you are whatever MOS, right, you could be 11 Bravo, 88 Mike, you could be at 92 Golf, whatever, right, and you make it through Special Forces selection, you're going to become an 18 series. Where in the Rangers, they want specific MOSs, and you're going to stay that MOS, but in the Rangers. So being a Ranger is not the same as like being a Special Forces, where you get reclassified to an 18 series MOS because that is Special Forces. Rangers, you just have to be in a qualifying MOS that is within the Rangers. And then last one for enlisted soldiers, eligibility for a secret clearance. Most soldiers I'm seeing nowadays in current today's Army are getting a secret clearance. Some MOSs don't necessarily require that to join, but then they find themselves in situations where they're getting a secret clearance after they're already in the Army. So that's not too big of a deal. It's not quite like back in the day, right? It used to be a point where, it was a little bit more challenging to get a secret clearance. If you didn't need it, they were going to give you one. Now they try to give pretty much as many soldiers as possible a secret clearance because of the things you do and the things you handle usually require that secret clearance. If you want to join as an officer, a little bit different of requirements. You have to be in an MOS found at 75th Ranger Regiments. For officers, of course, you have to be within the rank of a first lieutenant, captain, or major. So if you are a brand new lieutenant, that second lieutenant, you're going to have to try to rank up first before you'll be qualified to be able to move on to that. And then, of course, eligibility for a secret security clearance, which is pretty common with officers anyways, to probably have a secret clearance anyways. So the MOSs, right? Like I said, not every MOS qualifies to be in the Rangers. So on my website at thechristopherchaos.com, I have this whole list inside of here. Of course, 11 Bravo qualifies to be in there. You got 11 Charlie for indirect fire for mortarmen type of thing, right? You also have combat engineers, you've got interior engineers, you got all sorts of MOSs. Like I said, I'm not going to go through all of these 25 uniforms, right? You've got, a paralegal specialist. You can be a paralegal specialist and be a Ranger. Yes. I mean, a lot of people always assume that Rangers are just like infantry type of individuals. No, you can be these kind of things. You can be a counterintelligence agent. You can be a human intel collector, signal intelligence analyst, cryptologic communications. There's all sorts of MOSs. Some MOSs that people would consider pogues can be in the Rangers, can be a Ranger. You can be known as an Army Ranger and be in some of these MOSs. Civil affairs specialist, right? Human resources specialist, HR, an HR rep as an Army Ranger, right? Like I said, the common misconception of thinking that an Army Ranger is just always these infantry individuals. Not always, right? There's a lot of MOSs that are available to that. Combat medics is available. Even my old MOS, 88 Mike, I knew somebody that was an 88 Mike in the 75th Ranger Regiment as well. So there is a lot. I mean, it's probably easier to find MOSs that are not available in the 75th Ranger Regiment rather than trying to figure out which ones are available for the 75th Ranger Regiment. One that it's easy for me to kind of notice from like experience of people asking me, hey, can I be in the Rangers in this MOS? A 19 Kilo or a 19 Delta. So if you want to be a scout, you want to be a tanker, those are not MOSs on this list. If you look here, we get into where the areas where the 19s would be, right? You got 15, 25, it skips it, right? So that 19 Kilo, 19, Delta for the scout type of thing, not going to be available to be in the Rangers. You're going to have to reclass to a different MOS that is on this list, that it is available in that specific list for qualifying MOSs for the Rangers. So there you go, right? If you are interested in becoming an Army Ranger, that is an individual that goes through RASP, through that selection program, gets selected, is in one of these MOSs that qualifies for it, and then goes off to the 75th Ranger Regiment, to whatever battalion, whatever that they're going to assign you to within that 75th Rangers. So you can go off to different locations. This is not something available in the Reserves and National Guard like it is with Special Forces, as Special Forces does have a National Guard type of unit. This is only for active duty. Active duty is the only Ranger regiments they have. They don't have any reservists or National Guard Ranger regiments, so you have to be active duty to be able to be in this type of thing. So if you want to be in that, visit ChristopherChaos.com. You can learn a little bit more information. Always talk to a recruiter, right? Questions. Maybe there's certain things that are waiverable for you. Maybe there's other kind of ways to be able to get around certain other things type of thing, right? So make sure you're always doing more research than simply just only listening to me. Hey, if you want to learn more, I have a video right here that tells you what is the difference between RASP and Ranger School. I'll explain it all right here. So check that out. Links in the description box down below for social media. Make sure you're subscribed. Thanks for watching. I'm Christopher Chaos. I'll see you next time. See ya.